it was only when I let go of it, I was like, my life is easier now. I'm not fighting all the time.
I can't sit behind a desk and do the things that people tell me.
You can't rush the update.
Unfortunately, I feel like I've learned that lesson at least 3 times.
So before we get started, I want to say this clearly. This isn't a podcast about success stories. It's not a highlight reel, and it's definitely not a place where people come to tell you how they figured everything out. This is a podcast about the messy middle, about the moments where things don't quite make sense yet, but you keep going anyway. I've spent most of my adult life in the music industry, working with artists, executives, founders, creatives. From the outside, a lot of those careers look impressive. On paper, they make sense. Up close, they are rarely neat. What I've learned both personally and professionally is that the most interesting parts of people's stories usually happen after the big wins or before anyone notices them. They happen in the uncertainty, in the self-doubt, in the moments where you're asking yourself, is this still worth it? That's the space this podcast lives in.
If you're in survival mode, you have no space to just exist and find joy.
Never wanted to come home at 30 and have to get a job.
Our secret catchphrase was like, we'll figure it out.
Across this season, I'm sitting down with people I know well and a few I don't to have honest conversations about how they navigate purpose, pressure, identity, and change. These are people who've built things, lost things, walked away from roles that looked perfect from the outside, people who've had to redefine success more than once. And I'm not here to sit quietly and nod. I'm part of the conversation. I bring my own experiences into these episodes, my own missteps, my own recovery, my own recalibrations. Not because my story is the point, but because presence matters. These conversations only work if they're real.
Momentum beats perfect positioning.
So many people are fixated on like where they want to go and what they want as the outcome, that they miss all of the joy that leads up to that.
As I'm like finding myself, quieting the noise, understanding what it is that I actually want, getting clear on what I want for my next step, I was like, oh, I'm using all of these tools in order to get through this loss. And I'm not just doing that for myself, but I'm doing this for my family members and for others. And I was like, oh, shit.
It was a gradual change. What you were just talking about with leaving the office and having nothing left to give. That started happening to me a number of years into running my company. And I didn't realize that it was happening and that I didn't realize that it was burnout.
If I'm not giving you the tools and reminding you of who you said you wanted to be, you might just stay put. And most of us have stayed put in the same space for months, years, way longer than we may actually want to admit. And that stems from being afraid of failing. But if you realize that there is no such thing as failure because you decide you're going to learn from these mistakes, then you will always win.
When things get really tough and you start to dig in and realize, like, I don't want to keep doing this thing now either. Like, maybe I thought I was this, but now I'm doing this really unhealthy whiplash behavior to try to fill the hole of whatever I thought I was. Those were moments where you got to learn some self-awareness and start digging in on what is it that I value and what makes me me and who do I think I am? If I'm not that, what am I? And just having the time and space to ask yourself those questions, I think is something a lot of people never even get to.
One of the things that comes up again and again in these conversations is the idea that everything we feel is trying to tell us something. Not as a flaw, not as a defect, but as a signal. When we're exhausted, disconnected, restless, or stuck, it usually isn't because we're failing. It's because something needs attention. And yet, we live in a culture that tells us to override that, to push harder, to optimize, to perform resilience rather than actually build it. This podcast is a quiet refusal of that idea. I'm not interested in quick fixes or neat frameworks that promise clarity without having to do any actual work. Real clarity takes time, it takes honesty, and often it takes sitting with discomfort longer than we'd like. That's something sobriety taught me really quickly. You don't get to bypass the hard parts. You learn how to stay present while they pass. And that skill, learning to how to stay, shows up everywhere. In work, in relationships, in creativity, in leadership. There's also humor in these conversations. Levity, swearing, tangents, because real life isn't scripted, and neither are these episodes. You don't need to take notes while listening to this show. You don't need to turn it into a productivity exercise. You just need to be present.
Realizing you may be the only or the other somehow gives you the opportunity to make your own narrative. It gives you the opportunity to say, you know what, nobody else is doing this, so I'm just going to do this way.
No one's ever going to care about this as much as I do, and that's okay. And I want to build this thing, and I want to create this culture in my company, and I knew what I didn't want it to look like, and I was pretty sure I knew what it did want to look like, and it just became this like fueled thing of, we can make something together.
Each episode stands on its own, but together they build a bigger picture, not of what success is supposed to look like, but of how people actually live with it, question it, and sometimes walk away from it. If you're in a moment of transition or pressure or quiet reevaluation, you're probably in the right place. And if you're just curious about how other people navigate the uncertainty that comes with building a meaningful life, you're welcome here too. This season isn't about having answers. It's about asking better questions and about reminding ourselves that clarity doesn't usually arrive fully formed. It's built slowly through experience, reflection, and honest conversation.
I have clients all the time. I feel like I should be, or I should do, I should. And I'm like, just listen to the shoulds. It's a big indicator of feeling like you're not enough or you're not doing something right.
I remember the identity was I was this entity, the singer of this band, and I had nothing else going for me other than that in my mind. And so when that was over, there was like a trough of despair of like, who am I? For sure. My identity was consumed by the thing that I was doing. I feel like people often conflate their identity with the thing that they're doing because it's an easy thing. It's a visual thing to assign value to, instead of realizing that that's just an expression of who you are. And it's the thing you're choosing to do currently, but it's not who you are.
It takes a lot to open up and really bare your soul. So I'm incredibly appreciative of all the guests that I have coming up. And hopefully there'll be some really, really insightful things that you can take away from this as well. I'm Eric Mackay. This is the 12 Steps to Success. I'm really glad you're here with me. Hope you enjoy the podcast.